Ladies and gentlemen, lock in, because it's finally time. Finally time for me to reveal what the script is for VCT Champs 2025, because I'm going to tell you how all these games are about to go. There's no point in watching them. It's over. Once you've seen this video, you will know everything that will happen. I will say, and I am going to predict the tournament winner at the end of this video as well, I have never got a tournament winner right at this point. And I've been doing this for a while, so that's not great. I know, I didn't even get Fnatic at Tokyo right, which was probably the easiest one. And I can't even remember who I went for. I think Paper Rex or something. Terrible pick. And then I went Fnatic at Champs, and they didn't win Champs, so yeah, not great. Anyway, let's talk about these games. Paper Rex versus Gilai. We'll spend a little bit more time on the actual games that we know are going to happen, right? Rather than the kind of theoretical ones, if it goes the way that I think it will. But Paper Rex versus Gilai, I think this is one of the easier games to pick, just because there is very few worlds, like if you try and say, like, Gilai are going to win this game, like, why? Right, like, how would Gilai win this game would be really the question. Out firepowered, most likely. They're not going to have as good strats. They're not going to have, you know, the coordination that Paper X do. It's difficult to find a world in which Gilai win. Maybe they could win a map on a bad map from Paper X. I think that's possible, but overall, I just don't see many paths to victory. Giants versus Sentinels. This one I think is more of a coin flip, and I think, you know, reading the names, you might just instantly think, well, Sen are going to win. But Giants, I think, could cause them some problems. I don't think this is the worst matchup that Sen could have got in this first game, because I do think that Giants play a pretty standard style of Valorant, right? They play a lot of, like, double initiate. They're still playing a lot of Breach, for instance, on Giants. And I think that Sen will have the kind of knowledge of how to play against that. I don't think they'll get any surprises here for Sen, and I overall do still trust them enough to be able to beat that, I think. Although I do expect Giants to at least win a map. Let's go down to the bottom in Gilai versus Giants, and look, there is generally, and I'm sure if you look at other people's pick'ems of how they think this is going to go, it's going to be like most people's pick'ems, where they think that the Chinese teams will probably win like one game between all of them. My pick'ems are not going to be like that. They're going to be very different, and for some reason, I'm putting in at a certain amount of Chinese teams are going to win, so I'm going to say that Gilai, this is one of them. Paper Rex versus Sen, I'm going to go Paper Rex, and then Sentinels are the Chinese farmers, so I will go Sentinels there as my two teams to qualify in Paper Rex and Sen. Not too much of a surprise in that group, although maybe Giants going out last is a bit of a shock. Group B. Tougher group, I think, overall. Not necessarily this first game, Bilibili versus MIBR. MIBR are a real unknown in this tournament, so who knows, they might be pretty good, but they also might be quite bad. And I do think that Bilibili are just good enough to be able to win that game. So I'm going to pick Bilibili there. RRQ versus Fnatic. In this one, I mean, this is a banger game, right? Straight off the rip. And I am quite down on Fnatic, personally. I do think that they've got a lot to solve, and I think that RRQ are a good enough team to be able to beat them. If Fnatic played like how they did in the EMEA playoffs, I think RRQ would definitely win, to be honest. So we need to see an improvement for them, and I actually think they need to fix too much. So I'm going to say RRQ will beat Fnatic just there. I do think Fnatic will probably beat MIBR, and I'm actually going to go RRQ beating Bilibili there as well. But then I'm going to say that Fnatic get eliminated by Bilibili. Now, this has been my take for a while now, that one of these teams, one of Fnatic, Sentinels, or Team Heretics, at least one of those three teams will go out in groups in Fnatic, Sentinels, or Team Heretics. I feel pretty strongly about that. And so I don't think this would come as a massive shock if Fnatic didn't make it, because I think that their group, these three teams, Bilibili, RRQ, and Fnatic, are all pretty close. And I do think that this is a possibility. So that's what I'm going to go for. Team Liquid versus DRX. Again, DRX are going to be a bit of an unknown here, but I think that they are probably going to play standard enough for Liquid to be able to understand what they're doing and for Liquid to be a better team. NRG versus EDG. Now, of all of the first games that are going on, I actually think that this one is the hardest to pick. And that might shock some of you, and you might look at some other ones and be like, what? I really struggled with this game in terms of knowing who to pick, because there's a lot of variability in these teams, I think, right? I think that NRG have shown themselves to be a good team. Maybe not a great team, but you know, a good to very good team. But like on an international stage, first time for some of them, could they underperform? I think they could, right? And EDG is the opposite, right? Like defending champs winners who are not playing very well right now, but could they lock in and play amazing now that they're back on champs and are, you know, feeling the stage and the energy of the crowd and all that? Like, yeah. Or could they continue to be terrible? Yes. A tough call here between these two teams, because I could see a lot of different possibilities here. I'm actually going to go EDG in the first game that they play and say that NRG maybe suffer a bit from nerves in that first game. I will have NRG beating DRX, and I will have Team Liquid beating EDG, giving us kind of a second rematch of this game. And generally when we get these second rematches and it's like close between the two teams, I always like to pick the other team to win it, to kind of prove that there isn't kind of, you know, a big gap between them, and I don't think that there is. So I am going to have NRG going through here, but just getting there in kind of a roundabout way. So that's what I'm going to go for Group C. And then Group D, G2 versus Team Heretics. Could Heretics lock in? Maybe, but I do think that G2 overall right now will just be a bit too good for them. I think most people are probably gonna have that as well. DRG versus T1 is a game that I'm really quite looking forward to be honest. But I do think that with the sub likely playing with Demon 1, likely playing for DRG, might cause them, you know, a few issues and whatnot. I think that unfortunately T1, I actually think are like a bad matchup for DRG, because T1 obviously do have aimers on their team. So if we end up in just kind of a scrap, I think the T1 are okay in a scrap. I think they could have ended up, you know, NRG here, DRG, or, you know, DRX, someone like that, you know. I know obviously the seeding means that some of those things can't happen, but, you know, if they ended up with certain matchups, I would actually feel okay about them. But T1, I think, are actually a bad matchup for them. I do think the Team Heretics are better than DRG, even if Ukushu is playing at this point. I do still think that they are just overall a better team, although I do... This game, if this happens, will be exactly, I think, like the FPX games of last year, where it's very, very close, and DRG are playing weird comps. I mean, the old FPX coach is at DRG now, so it wouldn't shock me if that was the case, but I am going to go Heretics. I'm going to say that G2 are just obviously better than T1, and I am going to pick Heretics to beat T1 there. I mean, I know I've been a T1 hater this whole year, but I am going to pick Team Heretics to win that game as well. And so those are my pick'ems. So I've got Heretics, G2, NRG Liquid, BLG RRQ, and Sen and Paper Rex making it through to the playoffs. So maybe not too many surprises. I don't love that I've only got one Chinese team here, because I do feel like two Chinese teams could be correct. So maybe EDG win that game, but I'll stick with what I've gone for now, and say that this is going to be the case. And then I'll go and tell you what will happen the rest of the way as well. Okay, so with those teams having qualified, and again, I have not got one of these right at any point. So the team I'm about to say is going to win this tournament. Don't worry about it. They definitely won't win the tournament. I'm going to say the top three will be, well, in third place, I'm going to put G2. In second place, I'm going to put Paper Rex. And in first place, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put Team Heretics. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Well, one, I mean, I've never got one right, so this isn't going to happen. But I know what you're all thinking. How the hell would Team Heretics win this tournament? You're delusional. You're doing what Sideshow did at Toronto, although actually Heretics looked good going into Toronto. Well, that's the thing. I'm doing opposite to Sideshow, because people are down on Heretics now. And I'm saying that if they start winning these games, they'll start to build the confidence. Once they get into playoffs, I think they'll be back on form. And you know, when this team is locked in and on a bit of a surge, that they have it within them to do very well in these tournaments. And so I'm going to say that this is the tournament that they will ride that wave. You know, in Paris this time, I would expect, you know, if we got to the big stage, that the crowd would be with them. I'm going to say that Heretics managed to do it and managed to win Champs Paris. And as I say, I've never got one of these right, so that definitely won't happen.